In fact, if there are any relationships like that out there, if you could just text each other before the end of this, it's over, thank you, done. As a small word of warning, girls, there have always been and there always will be boys who don't care. And as long as they don't get hurt in the long run, they will say all the words, I love you. Well, everybody else is doing it. If you won't, some freshman will. I'll die. He's not going to die, and nothing will fall off. He will actually live. And real love respects. Love does not pressure, damage, hurt, take, and walk. Girls, love would never ask you to do something that could damage you for the rest of your life. That's not love. Girls ask me all the time. Boys never ask this. Girls ask me this daily. Well, how would I know if it's love? I mean, how would I know if he loved me? He said in my heart's pounding, he's cute. Girls, there's only one way you will ever know if this boy loves you. One way. Put a boundary down. Say this far and no further. And watch for respect. You don't have love without respect. It's not possible. For those sores in your genital area, it may cause nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. Birds are singing beautiful music. There's a waterfall. They're riding bikes. I don't know how. And I'm watching this going, she's gorgeous. Huh? I'm going down to Rite Aid later and asking for herpes because she's got it and she's cute. Well, I want my days to be my days. I want herpes. Students, you know how many people have herpes now? If you are 12 or older, and I'm hoping that's most of us here, if you are 12 or older, 1 in 5 people in the U.S. over 12 is now infected with herpes. 1 out of 5. And that is not the most common STD. The number 1 STD in the United States and Canada and around the world, the most common STD is human papilloma virus, HPV. This is also a virus. What does that mean? No cure. You got it forever. You're going to give it to others. This is not only the most common STD, it is the most contagious STD we know. This is not transmitted the way HIV is transmitted. We'll talk about that in a second. Street name for human papillomavirus or HPV is genital warts. Basically warts on the genital area that need to be burned off periodically either through laser surgery or chemicals. Now, we used to think that was the only big deal. You know, just get a few warts, have them burned off. This is not a problem. So we realized a few things about this virus, students. Number 1 is this. You can have the virus and you can be giving it to other partners without ever having warts. In fact, the most cancerous strains, and there are over 100 strains of this virus, the most cancerous strains don't produce warts at all. Teenagers are not infecting each other with this because they mean to. You don't mean to. You don't know you have it. Girls, if you do get warts or lesions as a result of being infected with this virus, typically, ladies, they will be on your cervix. When was the last time you saw your cervix? I had an 8th grade boy in Detroit look up at me and go, I don't know. I said, you don't have one, honey, breathe. This is not a part of your body you can see. I know when I say genital warts to students that I've got students sitting out there who've had sex who in their mind are doing this. Well, she said that wart thing and I have never seen a wart down there. I don't have that. My friend, if you've had sex or sexual contact, and I will define that in a second, and you have not been specifically tested by a doctor for the virus, and males, that's a test that costs in excess of $1,000. There's no one that's doing it. Test me, go to a doctor and say, I would like to be screened for HPV. We don't do it. We can't screen males. The test that they tried using to screen is a blood test, extremely ineffective, and could take up to 5 years before you would ever test positive. It astounds me that we have boys saying stuff like this to girls. I don't have anything. I got tested. For what? And how much did it cost you? And I sure hope it's been 5 years since you last had sex. Students, STD testing cannot tell you what you don't have. We can't tell you what you don't have. We got kids thinking they can have sex on Friday night, run to a clinic on Wednesday, and tell somebody they don't have a disease simply because they got tested. We do test girls for this. We test them through a thin prep pap test. It's a snip of the cervix. Why don't we test boys that way? You don't have one. Very good. We're now requiring every woman who's ever had sex to get a pap test yearly. If you are under the age of 24 and you've had sex, you are at highest risk and you need a pap test every 6 months without fail. A negative test, ladies, does not necessarily mean you don't have the virus. It means you don't yet have cervical cancer. HPV, guys, is a little annoying. Having warts burned off your genital area is painful, I'm sure, I'm guessing. And I would hate to have to be there when you had to tell the girl you loved and wanted to marry about every partner you had ever had. My risk of infection has nothing to do with whether you got tested or used a condom. My risk of infection has everything to do with where you've been. Guys, that might not be fun, having to tell your wife about your past, but you're going to live. Girls, this is a huge deal for you. HPV is the #1 causal agent of cervical cancer in women. We now have girls as young as 18, 19, and 20 undergoing radical hysterectomies will never have children because of invasive cervical cancer. I had a senior come up to me recently. She came up, she goes, Pam, I've got cervical cancer. Got it in the 9th grade. Which means she got the virus in the 7th or 8th. She said, I've had numerous cryosurgeries, freezes in my cervix, the cancer spread in my uterus. They're doing a hysterectomy next week, 3 weeks before she graduated. She was being tough. She said, Pam, kids are noisy, smelly, cost a lot of money, and I don't want one. Then she got a little teary. Said, I'm just trying to deal with the fact that I have to tell the man that I love and want to marry someday that if he marries me, neither will he. Is it worth this, girls? Really? Because he said he loved you? Let me quick say this. There is now a vaccine that they're making available for HPV for young women. The problem is it has to be given well before there's been any sexual contact, which is why they're talking about now giving it to girls as young as 10. And here's the other problem with this. It is basically effective, we're not sure, but basically effective for 4 out of the 100 strains of this virus. And we are not sure for how long it will remain effective. And I asked some doctors, I said, well, now that you have a vaccine, are you going to stop doing Pap tests on women? And he laughed. Of course not. We will still do Pap tests on any sexually active woman. Well, why? You have a vaccine. Because it's not necessarily 100% and we don't know what's going to happen. Basically, what we're saying is this. Just because you get a vaccine does not necessarily mean you can have 50 partners and never have a consequence. This is not an end of the problem. It just reduces the risk of further cervical cancer in women. And it's important that you understand that. Here's the other point we need to make about HPV. This is one of the most serious viruses that you need to understand. There's 2 most important things about this. Number 1 is this. They now estimate that about 57% of the sexually active students in high school and college are infected with HPV. That's one of the problems. We got about half already infected with that virus. And what that means is there's almost no way that you could have sex with someone who is not, in fact, a virgin and not come in contact with this virus. It's almost statistically impossible. One of the reasons as well, besides just the sheer numbers, is that this virus is not transmitted the same way as HIV. HPV is transmitted through skin contact. It does not require the exchange of body fluids, blood, semen, or vaginal fluid. HPV and herpes are contracted by mere skin contact anywhere in the genital area. All it takes is skin contact anywhere, and you're infected. Let me make that clear. It doesn't take what some of you define as sex. Do you know how many teenagers we've had in our clinics test positive for herpes and HPV who thought they were technically virgins? They thought they could do everything else. See, what was their big fear? What were they worried about? They're worried about getting pregnant. So I can do all this other stuff. It's not sex. It's safe. It doesn't count. I'm still a virgin. I don't have to tell people who I did that with because that's not sex. Students, I am now going to give you the medical definition of sex. This is the medical line over which you cannot step. And if you have stepped over this line, you've risked disease and you need to get tested. And don't you dare tell anyone you're a virgin. Don't you dare. We got teenagers running around going, I'm a virgin, and they're infecting each other like wildfire. Here is the line over which you cannot step. Absolutely no genital contact of any kind. None. Yes, that includes oral sex. One of the most infective ways you could ever have sex. Every single sexually transmitted disease is transmitted through oral sex. And we got kids thinking that doesn't count? That it's safe? Think you're still a virgin because it was oral sex? If you have had oral sex, you're not a virgin, and you can't tell anyone you are, and you will have to tell every partner you have, everyone you've done that with. Is that clear? Anybody confused? I get emails from students. Does that mean shaking hands? We don't usually have genital contact with people we're meeting in the hallway, you know. Hello, nice to meet you. Usually. It takes a little more contact than that. Okay, here's a simple rule. I like it simple. I told you that at the beginning. Here's a simple rule. If you both abide by this rule at all times, you're 100% safe. You can run through these halls yelling virgin. Here it is. Ready? Keep your pants on. Simple. If you've done that, you're fine. If you haven't done that, you need to get tested. Okay, is that clear? Very good. Then there's HIV. You won't spend time on it. It's the virus that causes AIDS. It's deadly. You don't want it. Equal opportunity virus, hurting boys and girls the same. Death is death. In light of that, what are we telling you to do to make sure you don't get this virus that will kill you?